everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to get into the new collection from Nars. This is the Claudette collection. So they launched a palette, a blush duo, and some lipsticks. Now I only picked up the palettes. The lipsticks, when I bought these two, were not available. I bought them on the Saks Fifth Avenue website. And this palette retails for $49. The collection is now available at Sephora and on the Nars website, which I will leave a link to all the places that I find it in the description box down below. So this has 6 shades in it, 3 shimmers and then 3 mattes. This palette has 12 grams worth of product. And then we have the Claudette Blush Duo palette. This palette retails for $45 and it has 2 different shades in here. And I try on both of the shades, give you guys my thoughts on it, and also do some comparisons on shades of these blushes compared to some of the other blushes that I have. So that's what we're doing in today's video. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the tutorials of me using both palettes. Then we will get into the swatches and comparisons, and then I will jump into my final thoughts. So I will see you guys then. So let's go ahead and create a look using this Claudette palette. I've already dunked my finger in these and I'm kind of excited to try them out. The 3 shimmers on the top are pretty. This one in particular, I want to play with this one. I think this is a pretty purple, and purples, like those really pretty light lilac colors, are always my thing. So I'm going to go directly into this purple without wetting it down and without using a finger. I just want to see the pigmentation that that shade has. And ooh, it's pretty. It's very pigmented, I can tell you that. And the base color is a purple. Okay, next up I'm gonna grab this purple right here. Just kind of start smoking this into the outer corner. Okay, now that I kind of have that color down, I'm just gonna start blending this out. I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, next I'm going to grab this shade right here. And I'm just going to go directly over top of that shade and kind of deepen it up. Okay, next I'm going to dip into that purple shimmer, this one right here. So I'm going to take a blending brush and I'm going to go into this shimmer shade and just kind of sweep it over top of everything. Okay, now I'm going to grab this shade right here and I'm going to bring that onto the lower lash line. And then I'm going to take my flat tip brush and go into the dark purple. Also going to bring that dark purple up on the upper lash line, just right at the base of the lashes, and kind of deepen it up. Okay, so this is the final look with the eyeshadow look. I did get some mascara right up here and I really can't get it off, so it's just gonna be what it is. I do like the way that it turned out, and I do love that purple color on my lid. I think it's very pretty. Let's go ahead and move on to this blush duo, and this is Ninichka and Crosette. I'm not exactly sure if I botched those. I probably did because that's my middle name. So I'm gonna put this shade on this cheek and this shade on this cheek. I've got 2 brushes here that I'm gonna use that are clean. So let's grab the Cheek Pro and we're gonna go into this shade. it's not that pigmented. It's very, like, okay, so I'm gonna, like, see how much I'm swatching. It's not that pigmented, so it's probably something that you're gonna have to build. Okay, so that's after applying it 3 times. So I was able to build it to that. Let's go into this shade and see what this shade looks like. Okay, so that's 3 times, and you can kind of start to see something. Let's go in for a 4th time. Okay, I will say it's a pretty blush, but it's something you gotta really, really build. That's it for the Blush Duo palette. We're gonna go ahead and jump into the swatches and comparisons, and then I will jump into my final thoughts, and I will give you my full opinion on both of these palettes. So I will see you guys then. Now that we've made it through the tutorials and the swatches, let me go ahead and get into my final thoughts. Let's first start with this palette. This is a beautiful palette. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Skin Deep palette, which is one of my favorites, I don't know why they won't bring it back. This is a great palette. This has been one of my favorites since I got it, and it's one that I consistently reach for, and I still haven't even cracked the surfaces on this palette, and I've used it so many times since I got it. If you guys are familiar with the Skin Deep palette, the formulas are pretty much exactly the same. The mattes are exactly the same, and the shimmer shades are exactly the same. So if you have the Skin Deep palette, then you will know exactly what this formula is, and actually I think these pair very well together. So if this has been one of your favorites, I think these will work really well together. But let me say this, the Skin Deep palette, it only has 11.2 grams worth of product, and there's a lot of shades in here. This palette is 12 grams worth of product total. I think this all boils down to what you have in your collection and if you really need it in your collection, because there is a lot of pigment in this palette and there's only 6 shades. So I think you have to decide what kind of a makeup wearer are you, how much makeup do you have in your collection, because it's all going to kind of depend on if you want to pay $49 for only 6 shades. But if you're somebody that doesn't have a lot of makeup in your collection or a lot of palettes, or maybe if you just have some of your favorites that you use, I could see this being an everyday palette that people could use on a regular daily basis and get a lot of use out of it because there's so much pigment in here. So it kind of all depends on what kind of a makeup user and if you have a larger collection like I do. As you noticed in the swatches, I went through a lot of my palettes. The only palette I could find that had anything close to this color story in one palette was the Mothership 5 palette from Pat McGrath. The only shade that I could not find was this shimmer shade on the top row, which is what I have on my lid now. The gold shade in the Mothership palette is a little bit darker than the gold shade in this palette, but the mattes are very, very similar. So I would say if you have this Mothership 5 palette, then this is definitely not worth the money just to get one purple silver shade, you know? So you kind of have to decide what is in your collection, if the palette is worth it. I wish they would have given us more shades and less gram. That's what I would have preferred, but this is a limited edition palette, so keep that in mind. But just strictly talking about the formula and all of that, these are beautiful. The shimmers are gorgeous, and this is my favorite shimmer formula from Nars. What's in the Skin Deep palette and what's in this palette. They apply exactly the same. It's that really beautiful texture where they just apply like a dream, and they're very beautiful. So it just depends on if you have the Skin Deep palette and you've loved it. I think you will really enjoy this. But you also have to decide if it's worth picking up and putting in your collection based on what kind of a makeup user you are. So let me go ahead and get into my thoughts about the Blush Duo. Two things. I think this palette is only going to work for those of you out there that have like fair to light medium skin tones. If you have a medium and darker skin, it's not going to work. I had to really build this to get any kind of pigmentation from it, which was kind of disappointing because the Overlust palette, which has, again, been one of my favorites. You can see I've used the cream highlighter so much. I've used the blushes and the cream highlighters in this palette so many times since I got it. I know it was recently on sale at several different places. I don't know if this palette is still available. If you have the Overlust palette, you definitely do not need this palette. I feel like the pigmentation in the Overlust palette is way, way better than in this new Blush Duo. There are some similar shades in this new palette versus the Overlust palette. So, you know, if you missed out on the Overlust palette, is it worth it? No. I don't really think this Blush Duo is that pigmented. I would have hoped for better pigment in this blush palette. So I'm going to dig my fingers into here. When I was swatching it, I had to go over the swatches like 6-7 times to get pigment. So you guys have seen me, how many times I've ran my fingers across. Let me show you what kind of pigment this has. It's not that pigmented. When I was swatching it, I had to go over those swatches several times to get the pigment to show up so that I could show you what the shades are. So this is a very weak pigmented blush palette. When I run my finger through the Overlust palette, it's a different formula than this. This is just really smooth, almost creamy to the touch, but it doesn't have that much pigment. It's a very interesting formula, and it's weak in my opinion. I think this is a pass for me unless you have the right skin tone to wear it. If you have the right skin tone to wear it and you already have the Overlust palette, don't waste your money on this Blush Duo. I would not buy this. So those are my thoughts on both of these products from Nars. Sound off down below. Have you guys bought these yet? How do you like them? Have you enjoyed them since you got them? Are you not liking them? Share with us in the comments down below. Let us know how you're feeling about these two palettes. I hope that this review was helpful. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I hope that you guys all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and I will see you all in my next video. Love you. Bye.